Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 7:01 p.m. We are in regular session tonight, although we start tonight with a public meeting. This is a public hearing about the Planning Commission's recommendation to include permitted uses for tobacco and cannabis establishments in the Athens City Zoning Code. Are there any speakers that would wish to speak on this issue tonight? If so, please come to the podium, sign in, give us your name and address, and whether you represent a group. Feel free to speak on the tobacco and cannabis establishments issue.
So I've already signed in. I'm Rob Delich, live on Morris Avenue here in the city. I don't have anything prepared, but I in support of this zoning code change to allow the city to regulate tobacco and cannabis establishments. I think it's common sense. I was also in support of the previous proposal that came forward and was tabled at council, which would have had licensing involved, but this is, I think, the next best thing we can do at this point. And I would encourage council to pass this soon, as medical marijuana facilities, I believe tomorrow, are able to sell recreational marijuana, and there's one in the city about to do that, so it's coming. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Delich. Anyone else wish to speak as part of the public hearing? Okay, are we, do we have to wait 5 minutes, Director Eliason, or are we allowed to call it? Mayor, please.
Just a point of clarification, or at least this may be new news, but there was some time ago one dispensary that was given a provisional permit to sell recreational marijuana. And the second dispensary in the city of Athens also has a provisional license now to sell and dispense recreational marijuana. So both of the established medical dispensaries will likely go live tomorrow.
For recreational as well as
Correct.
medical. Thank you, Mayor. Okay.
I was looking at the agenda and does say that our meeting begins at 7 p.m. and the first item of business is a public hearing. So if you want to wait another minute.
Sure, we'll wait another.
Say that we
Right.
waited 5 minutes.
That sounds good.
A question here.
Yes, Member Eisner.
Could you refresh my memory and tell me how this would affect the tobacco establishments and vape shops we already have within the city?
Well, to my understanding, and I'm sure others can speak, and perhaps Member Swank can answer that question, but it doesn't change anything, Member Eisner, for the businesses that are supplying those goods right now. Mm-hmm. They would have to apply for a license to actually be able to sell recreational marijuana, and our ordinance that's under consideration tonight has some zoning around that, and then the state has issued, I believe, a mile distance between establishments. So that's probably the main thing in our small community that's going to dictate where these can be.
I see.
Member Swank, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, having spoken with Director Stone Friday, that's exactly how he described it to me.
That's my understanding.
There is a chance, this being and this is totally speculative, but there is a chance, being a lame duck session of the state legislature, that perhaps following the election, the 1 mile provision may be modified. But other than that, the 500 feet is consistent also with alcohol. So don't see much change in that. But again, that's totally speculative, but who knows what the legislature might do after Election Day.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. Thank you, Member Swank. Okay, Last opportunity for citizens to comment on the public hearing. On the Planning Commission's recommendation to include permitted uses for tobacco and cannabis in Athens City Code. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to our regular session of Athens City Council. I'd like to start by acknowledging that here in Athens County, we live and work on land initially settled and developed by earlier people, particularly the Shawnee and the Osage, and those identified through cultures commonly known as the Adena, Hopewell, and Fort Ancient. This acknowledgement reminds us of the importance of honoring history, people, and the planet as we work to continue to improve our city's legacy. Our first order of business is to establish quorum. 6 of 7 council members are present this evening, and we have quorum. The next item of business is disposition of the minutes for the regular session of City Council held on June 17th, 2024, and the special session held on June 24th, 2024. May I have a motion? Director Eliason, I always forget, should I do these separately, or can I do these as a together? Okay, thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of these 2 sets of minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Reisner, Member Carey. Is there any discussion on these minutes? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes have been approved. We now have communications. Do any council members have communications they'd like to share? Member McCary.
Thank you, President Crowell. I'd like to provide an update on our City of Athens partnership with the Strong Cities Network. On May 21st, earlier this summer, the city collaborated with the Strong Cities Network to host a convening of local community members and organizations with an interest in combating polarization, hate, and extremism. The luncheon featured some presentations on the state of polarization in the nation and more locally, and in anticipation of increased challenges this fall. We will continue working through that partnership, organizing additional follow-up meetings and consultations with local schools and folks who are interested in attacking these issues at the K through 12 level versus additional meetings with the university to talk about collaboration opportunities there and for the general community. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with our DEIA coordinator, Lacey Rogers, and our mayor, who's engaging with the Strong Cities Network, even in Pittsburgh, as I understand it, coming soon. Is that right? Okay, thanks. That's all.
Great, thank you, Member McCary. Any other communications from council members? Okay, we now have reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason. Auditor Hecht. Treasurer Thomas is not in attendance tonight, as is Jessica Thomas. Mayor Patterson.
You saved me for last because you know I'm going to have a lot to say.
There
right?
you go.
Well, first off, welcome back, council. While you have been on recess, there's been a lot of things that have been going on in the city of Athens. A couple things to report out. West Union is now two-way, and to dispel any rumors or misconceptions as to what's happening, it will remain two-way. There will be some slight modifications in using Jefferson Street, which runs right along in front of the county fairgrounds, as a way in which to continue to keep the two-way traffic flowing. But the mid-course is down. Still a lot of work to go on in that area, and I know that there's been people concerned about the awful high sidewalk and then it drops down to the street. They still have a lot of work to do down there, so that'll all be corrected moving forward. Council may have also noticed the construction fence that's up around the Armory. The Armory is now barreling along with the renovations there, which is great news. Pepper Construction is doing the lion's share of the work in the Armory. So that will be moving along. The fire station headquarters, the construction did slip a little bit to where it was supposed to open up over the month of July, at least be move-in ready. It won't be so until the early October is what we're tracking right now. However, because we have heard from a lot of concerned citizens and visitors about the bike path, What I am told is that the bike path asphalt paving will take place tomorrow. So, you know, unfortunately, it has been a moving target. So I'm hopeful that that takes place tomorrow. When council has the opportunity, I would encourage you to come up to the utility billings office area in the city building. Hebe has returned for public viewing in the city building. And at this point in time, no curses have affected anybody in my office, although we are always on watch for something terrible happening if this curse were to resurrect itself. Also, when council's away, and I sent it to all of council, that being that the City Council of Austro-Ukraine sent a really wonderful letter of support to us recognizing Independence Day in the United States. Their Independence Day is coming up August 24th, and so I'm hoping to work with council to see if we can put together, or council would be willing to put together a resolution, one reading resolution, acknowledging their efforts to remain a sovereign, independent nation. They also flew the U.S. flag next to the Ukrainian flag in front of their city building. I do plan to fly the Ukrainian flag on the 24th of August in front of the armory next to the U.S. flag. I think that anything that we can do would be wonderful. As a reminder to everybody, let me back up one step. Kind of giving you a heads up for council, the rector for the National University Austro Academy is going to be coming to Athens and visiting with OU in the early part of October, and I would like the opportunity to invite the rector, Balashov, to come before council and just meet you at the beginning of a regular session. So hopefully more to come on that visit as we continue to build these relationships between our partner city, Austro, and the city of Athens. Bounty on the Bricks is coming at us this weekend. It'll be August 10th. The street closing for Court Street will happen around 7:30 a.m. So just as a heads up that will be closing down. We also had an amazing event last Saturday, the Athens Community Arts and Music Festival, with a major headliner, which was Guided by Voices, which, by the way, was intentionally set up with Scott Winland and myself because that was one of Paul Logue's favorite bands. And so it was basically a night of celebrating Paul as Sarah and Sarah's and Paul's son, Calvin, were both up there front and center on the stage when I had the opportunity to introduce the band to those who were in attendance. And it was a moving and wonderful night for the citizens of Athens. And again, council, welcome back. We've got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We will now move on to ordinances for third reading. I will read the titles and introduce the responsible council member. Ordinance 63-24 is an ordinance amending the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 63-24.
Second.
Allow me to read it before we take a vote, just to refresh everyone's memory since it's been 5-6 weeks. Section 1, the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $50,000 to DUI Court Fund 237.106, Transaction Code 100, and $5,000 to DUI Court Fund 237.106, Transaction Code 200-300, to cover 50% of the payroll expenses for 2 employees currently being paid from the general fund and increasing the total appropriations by said amount.
Thank you, Member Reisner. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions? elected officials, administration, audience members. Yes, please come forward, give us your name and your address and whether you represent a group, Mr. Klaus.
Hi, I'm Noah Klaus. I was born and raised here. I just had a question. Is that money coming from the is it a state, federal, local? What is the DUI fund? And is it coming from or going to, and that's being allocated to, from my understanding, to replace money that would be otherwise coming from the general fund? Is that correct?
Member Reisner, would you like to speak to that?
Well, to my memory, the funds are, this $50,000 is coming from the court, which is, they have their own separate ways of funding, but, through fines and so on, and also heretofore from the general fund. What they're doing here is saying, okay, we have enough monies in these other accounts to cover 50% of the employee's salary, and thereby not tapping into the general fund, which is kind of stressed at the moment.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess another way of rephrasing that would be like, what would the money otherwise be used for? That they say that like they're saying they have enough of.
That I can't speak to. That's up to the court. They're their own entity and follow their own rules.
Is there I guess I'm a little bit unclear. Is there a description of what the DUI fund would usually be used for?
I don't know, no.
Okay, thank you.
Or Mayor, do you want to speak?
Well, I can briefly, and I think maybe the auditor can really flesh this out, but, it's anything that is authorized under the 2 and 300s within the DUI court, as opposed to TC 100s. TC 100s are for payroll, medical benefits, things of that nature, where 200s and 300s are not, but it's still specific to any of the functions of DUI, the DUI court funds. Auditor, do you want to chime in at all? Or?
I don't know if I can add anything offhand. I get confused on the different, there's several of these grant funds, we call them, but often, as with some of the other grants, we don't get the full amount to fund the program. And so they do have people working in the fund, for the counseling fund, and so, and they do charge fines and costs, but it's not always enough for the program, and so that's really what it's for, but it's up to the court. I mean, we can get more information next time, or send you more information if you want, about the different ones, because there's several courts like that, grants like that, and they've changed names over the years. I think that might be the one that we used to call the SAMI Grant Fund and things like that, so I'll get more information for everybody, really.
Thank you, Auditor. And Mr. Klaus, if you want to leave me your contact information, I can make sure you get that. Okay, any other comments about this ordinance? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have ordinances for second reading. I will let the public know that we have a number of ordinances for second reading tonight that will need to be suspended and voted on for approval this evening. There are good reasons for all of them. I also want to note that any citizens that were interested in those ordinances, they were read for the first time in June, and there's been well over a month for anybody to come forward to speak to those, and there will be another opportunity tonight. So, ordinance 64-24 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 810 East State Street for off-street vehicle parking and light poles located in the city right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Sam.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Member Swank.
There'll be no action on this evening other than an update. Hopefully, we'll be able to pass this in 2 weeks. But to do that, we still have the light mitigation issue. Code has been out twice, taken measurements. and the light trespass varies from 5 to 20 times our allotted code lighting. Assuming that that is taken care of in the next 2 weeks, I fully expect for us to be able to vote on this with public input. If not, may very well have to move to put it on the table like the other one that's currently on the table. But we've had 6 weeks now, and we're still in the same situation. Just an update for the benefit of the members of council and the public.
Thank you, Member Swank. Ordinance 65-24 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 23, zoning, Chapter 23.04, permitted uses for tobacco and cannabis establishments, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Point of clarification, question for the law director, if I could, please.
Please.
As parliamentarian, if this recommendation from the Planning Commission were to be amended, it would take a supermajority, 75% of the vote of council, which would be 6 votes. If such an amendment were made this evening and passed, obviously we have fulfilled that requirement. If such an amendment were offered this evening and it were defeated by rule, could that same amendment be offered in 2 weeks at our next business meeting?
What would be the difference between this week and then in 2 weeks?
An extra council member would be here,
I
changing the possibility of the motion passing.
Right, well, you're only at second reading.
Right.
So perhaps you want to wait to third reading to make sure everyone's here.
Understood. The other reason for possibly doing it this evening is this would take it back to first reading right away. And I think with, as the mayor mentioned, these establishments opening tomorrow, the sooner we can get this on the books, the better. So I guess,
So just so I understand, your idea is that you'll propose an amendment and everyone here has to vote in favor of that
Yes.
amendment. And if it doesn't pass, then you're asking if.
in 2 weeks,
bring
could
it up
that,
in 2 weeks
yes.
At third reading.
Yes, ma'am.
You could do that,
I could?
yes.
Okay. So, to that end, and to make this consistent with tobacco and also alcohol, and with the state guidelines that were referenced earlier, what I'm proposing this evening is to simply insert one word in 5 different places. It's very, very simple. And basically what it would be is to insert the word church between school, and I'll read it, licensed cigarette, vapor product, or other tobacco product retail dealers. Establishments shall be at least 500 feet from, oh, wow, what happened here? At least 500 feet from a school, church, public library, public playground, public park, so on and so forth. High Revised Code has that for alcohol, and the state guidelines for cannabis, which, as we mentioned earlier, could change, also has the word church in that. And I think that would be consistent. One could say that in many instances, at least once during a week, if not more often, schools or churches also have schools. We call them Sunday schools. And it would make it consistent with both state and alcohol policy. So I would move that we.
Hold on just a moment, if I could make one statement.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have one concern though, because the notice of public hearing states, it's very specific about what it states. And it states, school, public library, public playground, public park, or any other licensed cigarette, vapor product, and other tobacco retail, product retail dealer. The public notice didn't say anything about church. I think I'm gonna have to research that issue to see that, to make that amendment, if for some reason then we would have to hold another public hearing on it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know that that's ever happened before. Clerk Walker, do you remember? I don't recall that.
So I guess you'd have to do the research.
On whether or not we would have to hold another public hearing.
Right.
In my notes, I see that the planning commission removed church, and we also don't know the rationale for that.
Rationale, as explained to me, is because of the location of the Presbyterian Church, it would eliminate the possibility of cannabis establishments 500 feet either way. Which, in that explanation, really there are two churches on Court Street. So I guess no need to, until we know if we'd have to have another public hearing, there's really no need to offer that
I think that-
amendment.
I would like the opportunity to actually research it.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, we're only on second reading, so.
Right.
It'll be read in 2 weeks again, and if you felt the need then, to amend it, and, you had the number of votes, then you could certainly, since it would have had 3 readings, could suspend the rules at that time. and
Right.
Pass it.
Okay,
So either way, you have the same result.
sounds good.
I'd like the opportunity to take a look at
Great.
the language, if the language had to be identical to what actually is going to happen.
Okay.
Okay, well, 6524 is read for the second time. Stay tuned on that ordinance. Ordinance 6624 is an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a participation agreement in the new national opioid settlement reached by the state of Ohio with the Kroger Company, and acknowledging that allocation and distribution of potential settlement funds will be pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding, available at https://nationalopioidsettlement.com, to accept the terms of the One Ohio settlement and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by all council members, and we have a request for a suspension of this tonight. Is there a council member who would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for 6624. Are there any comments or discussion?
The only reason that this motion is being made is the mayor has to actually apply by Friday, so,
Excellent reasoning.
and it's an electronic filing.
It is. The law director is correct. Must be electronically filed no later than August 12th of 2024. So it's,
Excellent, good reasoning. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member McCary. Or Member Clodfelder, was that your motion? Sorry.
We need a motion to
Motion to approve, Member Clodfelder?
So moved.
Is there a second to approve 66-20?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Administration, public? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 66-24. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is approved. The ordinance is approved. 67-24 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 108-17, the Athens City Affordable Housing Commission, introduced by Councilmember Spielness.
This is very simple. There was a little glitch in what was in the ordinance in the past, and to make it make sense, there's just a couple of minor changes. So one of them is that a 3-year term would have to start on May 1st, and people leave throughout the year, so that doesn't make any sense. So we would just want to change it to as needed. And then to be consistent with previous ordinances, et cetera, quorum for the Affordable Housing Commission shall consist of 6 members with a majority vote of the full membership as necessary for official action. Again, trying to make it consistent with previous ordinances, originating ordinances, et cetera. So that's it. Pretty simple.
Thank you, Member Spielness. Yes, Member Swank.
I have a question about that part that you just read. Quorum for the Affordable Housing Commission shall consist of 6 members with a majority vote of the full voting membership. Is the full voting membership considered 11?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would need 6 votes to pass anything
Yes.
at any time.
Right.
Okay. So if you had the 6 people show up and the vote was 5-1, it would not pass?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ordinance 68-24 is an ordinance authorizing disposal of a vehicle no longer needed for a municipal purpose, introduced by Councilmember Spielness.
Again, very simple. We are asked by the city to pass an ordinance when we need to dispose of a vehicle that's no longer necessary, and we apparently have one that needs to be gotten rid of. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Ordinance 69-24 is an ordinance amending ordinance number 103-20 as amended by ordinance number 42-21 with respect to the creation of the University Estates Incentive District within the City of Athens, authorizing the execution of a first amended and restated tax increment financing agreement with the property owner in such incentive district, authorizing the execution of a first amended and restated declaration of covenants and conditions relative to service payments in lieu of taxes, minimum service payment obligations, and other matters, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Again, no action on this, but an update. Someone used the term earlier, moving target. This has really become a moving target, or I should say targets. As of Friday, where we are is that at our next committee meeting, next Monday, Director Stone will be bringing a plethora of information with a lot of changes, modifications, particularly when it comes to banking and who has first right of purchase and all of that. He thinks he's worked out all the details, but we'll get a better picture at that time. His plan that is to bring this, or for us to bring this for second reading with amendments on the 5th, 12th, 19th, yeah, the 19th. And at that point in time, if the bids for construction of the infrastructure come in at or under the estimated price, he may very well be asking for suspension of the rules, simply so that we can get construction underway this fall with the anticipated building of homes, badly needed homes, as soon as possible. So that's where we are. We'll get all the information from Director Stone on the changes that have taken place in the last 7 weeks. And let's just hope that the estimate of what it's going to cost to put in the infrastructure was accurate and people are willing to bid at that price or better.
Just to be clear, this is second reading tonight, so it would be a third reading where there would be amendments and it would go back to first, and then we would have to
Possible
suspend the rules.
suggestion, yes.
Right. And those bid openings occur this week, so we should know this week whether that happened. Member Spielness.
Yeah, I just want to say that last time, we didn't get changes until Monday. And so this is a lot of long documents with a lot of stuff in it. So I'm hoping that they're a little bit more considerate about getting us the paperwork and changes so we have enough time to read them.
Yeah, I will get with Director Stone as soon as possible to see if he can accomplish that for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 70-24 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an economic development revolving loan fund administration agreement with the Ohio Development Services Agency, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was informed today that the administration would like for us to suspend the rules for ordinance 70, 71, 72, and 73 and 74. The reason being that all these ordinances are concerned about bringing in funds and grants for the projects that the city has been doing with a company called CoCosing, I believe. I think they did the solar panels out at the new park. Well, anyway, they sent us a bill and they want paid, which seems reasonable that we should pay it. So the best way to do it would be to suspend tonight on a second reading.
Thank you, Member Reisner. The ordinance in question of the CoCosing bill, I don't believe is this ordinance, but is this an ordinance that the administration would still like to see suspended and passed this evening?
For 7024?
Yeah, 70.
Not to my knowledge, on the revolving loan.
The
fund.
revolving loan fund is separate from the Armory. The 73 through 76 have to do with the SOPEC grant and the Armory Solar, the Kokosing bill, and the other. And then 71 is, I know, a suspension that Mr. Swank would like to see. I'm not sure that 70 is necessary, but if you'd still like to ask for it, Member Reisner?
I would just like to say that Councilmember Reisner is correct when it comes to the Kokosing solar, because we do have a bill that we've got to get paid on that one. But
Not this one.
7024 is fine. There's
Okay.
no-
Well, then I withdraw my,
Thank you, Member Reisner. So 7024 has been read for the second time. 7124 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 19 West Washington Street to add an awning that will be located in the city right-of-way over the storefront windows, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
The title of this ordinance pretty well says it all. Actually, to get a variance in this city is very, very easy if one follows the guidelines. The guidelines are simply to go to the code office, pick up the form, pay the fee, have code review it, and then it comes to council. And that is exactly what this applicant has done. This is the small boutique located between Donkey Coffee and Salam, both of which have a very, very similar awning. I'm going to move this evening that we suspend the rules for the simple reason is that we are about to have an influx of 16,000 students into Athens. And the sooner this business owner can get her awning up, the quicker attention can be drawn to her business and we can stimulate some business here in town. She's followed the rules to the letter of the law and is just waiting for our approval to install this awning above the city's right-of-way. So I would move that we suspend the rules per that explanation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion? Yes, Member Wood.
Not discussion, but I would say that I think Vanessa's last name is misspelled. It's Kalkanen, not Kalkanen.
Correct, I see that. We can get that, that's just a typo, we can get that corrected. Thank you, Member Wood.
And fortunately, there'll be no lettering on that sign, so we don't have to worry about a misspelling there.
Okay, all those in favor of suspending the rules for 71-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended. Councilmember Swank.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve 07124.
Second.
You have a motion and a second to approve 71-24. Is there any discussion? Administration, anything to add? Elected officials, audience? Okay, all those in favor of approving 71-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has passed. (72-24) is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 85 Elmwood Place to replace/repair an existing fence and pool house located in the city right-of-way on Shannon Avenue, introduced by Councilmember Swank. Ordinance 73-24 is an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary
There we go.
to accept Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council, SOPEC, community grant funds for the City of Athens Armory Solar Project, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is where I should come in. So, 73-24, you've read the title. As I stated mistakenly earlier, but factually correct, there is a bill to be paid, and this is the first step, so I would like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 73-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any comments or discussion? All those in favor of suspension signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member Reisner.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 73-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 73-24. Any additional comments or questions? Public, administration? Put it to a vote. All those in favor of approving 73-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is approved. 74-24 is an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept carbon fee expenditure for the City of Athens Armory Solar Project, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the reasons stated above and before, I would like to make a motion to suspend suspend the rules for 74-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for 74-24. Are there any comments or questions? Public? All those in favor of suspending the rules for 74-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 74-24.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adopt 74-24. Is there any discussion or comment? Administration, public? All those in favor of adopting 74-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has passed. The ordinance has passed. 75-24 is an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept City of Athens Public Pricing Program carbon fee expenditure for the City of Athens Armory Solar Project, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules
Second.
for 75-24.
We have a motion and second to suspend the rules for 75-24. Any comments or questions? Administration, public? All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 74-24, or 75-24.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 75-24. Are there any comments or questions, council, administration, public officials, or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 75-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance has been approved. Ordinance 76-24 is an ordinance authorizing an interfund transfer and directing said funds to the Athens Community Improvement Corporation for the City of Athens Armory Solar Project, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now we're at last but not least of these four. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 76-24.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for 76-24. Any comments or questions? Yes, please approach the podium.
I just had some basic questions. If anybody wanted to give basic context on the process for the Armory project, as far as what the Athens Community Improvement Corporation is, and so is the basically, if anybody could fill that picture in, that would be helpful.
Are you writing for a publication or? Okay, there's a lot involved, so,
It seems very complicated.
we could have coffee or something, and I could kind of fill you in at a greater detail.
That'd be
The
cool.
Athens Community Improvement Corporation is something that the Ohio Revised Code allows a municipality to form in order to handle a project like the Armory.
Gotcha.
And that's the way we've gone that route, in order to bring the Armory back to life. And there's a lot involved in it, but
Is the Armory was it transferred under to ownership to
Yes,
that
correct.
corporation? And then, okay.
yes, and there's a board that officially makes the decisions for that, the ACIC. Mayor, anything else to add?
Absolutely. Yeah, any CIC, any Community Improvement Corporation, the function of them is basically for economic development. It's a tool in which we can use under ORC to stimulate economic development, and that's what the city has chosen to do by transferring the property, which the city still basically controls it, but it allows for basically access into other ways of financing a project. You can get things like historic tax credits, which is a pretty powerful tool, especially since it is designated as a historic building,
Gotcha.
to where when we finally have the building completely developed, it'll be a co-work, share workspace. It'll also be event space.
And
And
it'll
probably,
be transferred back to the city at that point?
no, it'll stay within the CIC, the Athens CIC. I'm the chair of the CIC board.
Cool.
As we have other, Auditor Hecht is on the board as well, as being the auditor. President of council, I know that there's been a transfer, but President Sam Crowell is also on the board. And then we have two individuals, I'm probably missing somebody and I apologize, but we have two non-elected officials, individuals, who also serve on the Athens CIC, as any CIC is required to do that as per the
And
Ohio
is that
revised.
like a nonprofit or it's incorporated or?
It's more like a cog of sorts, but it's not. A cog is a council of governments. Again, it is not that, but they function in kind of a
And then,
similar to that.
cool. And then how's that, and thank you for answering questions, that's
Sure.
very helpful. And how is the board determined on something like that?
It's what's prescriptive under the Ohio Revised Code. It speaks to the mayor, city council member. There has to be an auditor involved in the process. We have legal representation that is part of the CIC as well. So someone from the law director, the assistant law director, serves on the CIC. Is that correct, Justice Brenner? Thank you.
She doesn't really serve on the board, but she advises the board.
Legal counsel on the board. And then we have two citizens from Athens. We have Mark Snyder, who serves on the board, and Leslie Schaller, also of AceNet, serves on that board.
Cool.
Again, with the intent being, this is for economic development, so it made perfect sense to have Mr. Snyder and Ms.
Yeah, AceNet and all the things they do, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Leslie Schaller, sorry. Blanking on Leslie Schaller's name.
Cool, yeah, well, thank you so much. Thanks for answering the question.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
You can still have coffee with Sam Crowell. but-
Yeah, we can get together now. Okay, I believe we had a motion to suspend, and did we vote? No, okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules for 76-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended, Member Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 76-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt 76-24. Are there any comments or questions from council, administration, public? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving 76-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion, the ordinance is approved. Okay, we will now move on to announcements and other business. We first need to confirm the mayor's appointment to the Shade Tree Commission. And I believe it is Joanna Sokol is the person whose resume we have on our drive. I've known Joanna through her work at the university in the campus recycling and zero waste department for a long time. She has now moved on to the University Communications and Marketing, but is a terrific individual to serve on the Shade Tree Commission. Are there any comments or questions about Ms. Sokol? Mayor, anything to add? Yes, member?
Her resume looks great.
Agreed. Okay, all those in favor of, I'm sorry, is there a motion to have Ms. Sokol join the Shade Tree Commission?
So moved.
Seconded.
We We have a motion and a second to approve Joanna Sokol for the Shade Tree Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Ms. Sokol, you are on the Shade Tree Commission. May I have a motion to accept the June 2024 financial reports?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financial reports from June 2024. Are there any comments or questions about these reports? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Reports are approved or accepted. May I have a motion to accept the April and May 2024 credit card transactions?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the April and May 2024 credit card transactions. Are there any comments or questions about these transactions? Administration, public? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The credit card transactions are accepted. We now have an opportunity for, oh, yes, Mayor, please.
President Crowell, I apologize. Something I would like to bring up, and I'll do it under announcements, should have come up under communications, so forgive me for this. But we get periodic announcements from AEP Ohio on monitoring potential severe storms, and just so we can get this out there to the public who might be watching tonight, that they are tracking a potential organized severe storm possibility for tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon and evening. So just wanted to get that out there. We have seen an increase in the number of trees that are falling across our roadways in the city of Athens. And we're likely to see more of that moving forward.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Saves on printing.
We now have the opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda tonight. Does anyone here like to speak? Seeing none, I will let everyone know that we will have committee meetings next Monday night. And so chairs, if you have any items that you want to bring forward, please notify Clerk of Council by Wednesday. We are now going to enter into an executive session. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved? Oh, for the purpose, we have to do it.
For purpose and all the people.
Oh, great.
That's why we all kept our mouths shut.
All right, I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and threatened litigation with all members of council, our law director, our mayor, and our auditor.
We have one other person, and that would be,
That would be the HR director, Ron Lucas, would be
And
joining us.
HR director Ron Lucas, who's on his way.
Probably
All right.
coming in.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter into executive session.
need a roll
And-
call vote.
I'm sorry, a roll call. I'm sorry. Roll call vote. Member Spielness?
Aye.
Reisner?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Swank?
Aye.
McCary?
Aye.
Bodfelter?
Aye.
So you may want to then explain
Yeah.
that you'll give them a
Time.
period of time, and that when we finish executive session, the door will be opened. And then
What
we'll
she said.
have a
So
motion.
we will go into executive session. We will have to have a private meeting, so we will close the door. But we will reopen the door after the executive session. If anybody would like to remain to ask any questions after executive session about the regular session tonight, we will be here for 5 or 10 minutes after the executive session.
And then you'll have a motion to adjourn.
And then at that point, we'll have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Law Director.
We should write all this out.
Okay, all those in favor of, and we've already done